In the summer of 1876, the northern nation moved like a great river through the high plains, strong, confident, unaware that history itself was gathering on the horizon. Rumors drifted in on the wind. Scouts whispered of soldiers. Visions warned of storms. And somewhere in the heart of it all rode a man who could read the shape of danger long before others felt its shadow. This episode follows Crazy Horse at a moment when the world around him is shifting, when choices must be made, when courage is tested, and when the line between survival and annihilation grows razor thin. The Lakota people stand on the edge of something vast, and the next steps they take will echo across generations. This is Chronicles of the Old West. This is Spirit of the Thunder People, the life of Crazy Horse. And today, the storm begins to break.
In the summer of 1876, the northern nation moved like a great river through the high plains, strong, confident, unaware that history itself was gathering on the horizon. Rumors drifted in on the wind. Scouts whispered of soldiers. Visions warned of storms. And somewhere in the heart of it all rode a man who could read the shape of danger long before others felt its shadow. Crazy Horse felt it most of all. For weeks he had listened to the scouts' reports, weighed the rumors, and measured the shape of the danger gathering around them. The soldiers were coming. Of that there was no doubt. But from where and in what strength remained a mystery. Sitting Bull's Sundance vision had promised a great victory, a storm of soldiers falling upside down into the village. But visions were not maps. They were warnings, or promises, or both. And now, on the evening of June 16th, the warnings arrived on lathered ponies. 3 Cheyenne scouts rode into the council circle, their mounts staggering with exhaustion. They had shadowed a massive army all day, an army crossing from the Tongue toward the headwaters of the Rosebud. A screen of Crow and Shoshone scouts rode ahead of the column, probing dangerously close to the village. The soldiers would be upon them by morning. The camp erupted. Women packed frantically. Men ran for their ponies. Elders shouted orders. The air filled with the thud of stakes being pulled from the earth. Crazy Horse listened, silent, his face unreadable. The danger was real, but was it the danger, the dust storm from the east, or another threat entirely? The elders counseled caution. Young men, leave the soldiers alone unless they attack us, they ordered, reinstating the old line of restraint the younger warriors despised. But Crazy Horse knew better. This was no decoy. This was no bluff. This was Crook, General George Crook, coming north with more than 1,300 men, reinforced by Shoshone and Crow scouts, a hammer aimed at the heart of the northern nation. And so, as the night deepened, Crazy Horse made his decision. He would meet Crook on the march. Around him, warriors gathered: Oglalas, Miniconjus, Sansarks, Hunkpapas, Cheyennes. Some were seasoned fighters, others were boys barely old enough to hold a shield, but all were ready. They rode out under a moon veiled by thin clouds, the night alive with the soft thunder of hooves. The warriors traveled in scattered bands, each group threading its own path through the Wolf Mountains. Communication dissolved in the darkness. No one knew exactly where the others were, but all knew the goal: intercept Crook before he reached the village. Crazy Horse rode with a group of 200, cutting across country toward the Rosebud, 10 miles downstream. They reached Trail Creek just before dawn, where agency families had camped. Reinforcements joined them. Among them, Jack Red Cloud, wearing a magnificent trailer headdress and carrying his father's engraved Winchester, the same rifle Red Cloud had received in Washington the year before. The warriors unsaddled, letting their ponies graze. The air was cold, the grass wet with dew. Men painted their faces, tied charms into their hair, whispered prayers to the spirits. Fathers gave last-minute advice to sons. Then came the shots. 4 Crow scouts appeared on a distant ridge, firing at Lakota scouts before wheeling away, shouting, "Lakota! Lakota!" The warriors surged forward, and before the Akecheta could restrain them, the attack began. The Battle of the Rosebud had begun without plan, without formation, without ceremony. Only the raw instinct of warriors who refused to let the enemy strike first. Crook's men were eating breakfast when the first shots reached them. Coffee cups froze halfway to lips. Cards dropped from hands. Officers scrambled to form lines. The Crows and Shoshones, sensing the danger before the soldiers did, galloped to the bluffs. Then the Wolf Mountains contingent, hundreds of painted warriors, swept down the valley like a breaking storm. For 20 minutes, the battle hung in the balance. The soldiers were nearly overrun. Only the fierce courage of the Crow and Shoshone scouts kept the line from collapsing. Slowly, Crook's men pushed the Lakotas and Cheyennes back onto the hills. But the battle was far from over. Crazy Horse and his warriors, hearing the gunfire, sliced up a side canyon and emerged onto the tableland, overlooking the field. Below them, the valley was chaos. Bluecoats scrambling, scouts charging, ponies bleeding and collapsing in the dust. Crazy Horse saw at once that the ambush plan was useless now. The battle had become fluid, mobile, exactly the kind of fight he excelled in. He gave the order. The warriors charged downhill through a gap in the bluffs, a wave of color and fury. 2 moments from that charge would be remembered for generations. One was shameful. Jack Red Cloud's pony was shot from under him, and as he fled uphill, Crow scouts quirted him in mockery. The other was immortal. Buffalo Calf Road woman, a young Cheyenne woman, saw her brother's horse go down in the gap where the fighting was thickest. Soldiers were closing in. Bullets tore the air. Any sane person would have turned back. She didn't. She drove her pony straight into the gunfire, hauled her wounded brother across her saddle, and carried him out under a storm of bullets. Warriors on both sides saw it. Her courage lit the field like lightning. It changed the energy of the fight. It reminded the men what bravery looked like. The soldiers countercharged. The warriors fell back. The lines dissolved and reformed. The battle stretched across miles of broken country. By mid-morning, the fight had lasted nearly 2 hours. Many believed it was over. Crazy Horse saw it before anyone else did. Across the broken ridges on Crook's left flank, Lieutenant Colonel William Royal's battalion, 5 companies of cavalry, had drifted too far from the main body. In the chaos of the morning's fighting, they had chased the retreating warriors too eagerly, too far, too fast. Now they stood exposed on a long, uneven ridge, their formation stretched thin like rawhide, pulled to tearing. Their horses were blown, their ammunition belts hung light, and worst of all, they were alone. To Crazy Horse, it was as if the battlefield itself had opened a door. This was the moment he had been waiting for. He rode along the line of warriors gathering on the heights, his hair streaming, his Winchester raised overhead. His voice carried across the ridge like a war drum. Hold on, my friends. Be strong. Remember the helpless. This is a good day to die. The cry rolled through the ranks. Bad Heart Bull, Black Deer, Kicking Bear, all seasoned fighters, took up the shout. Good Weasel, the Akechita, enforced the order with the flat of his lance, driving stragglers into position, tightening the line. Then Crazy Horse pointed his rifle toward Royal's isolated command. The warriors surged forward. They came down the slopes in a wave, Cheyennes, Oglalas, Miniconjus, riders zigzagging through the sage, firing Winchesters and Henrys from the saddle. Their ponies leapt over gullies and boulders. Dust rose in sheets. War cries split the air. Royal's line buckled almost immediately. The soldiers tried to hold. They fired volleys downhill, but the warriors were too many, too fast, too fluid. Horses collapsed. Men fell. The ridge that had seemed a strong position became a trap. Crook saw the danger too late. He sent couriers racing across the battlefield, shouting for Royal to fall back. But the warriors pressed harder, sensing the weakness, sensing the fear. Each time Royal tried to withdraw, Crazy Horse hurled another charge at him, cutting off his retreat, driving him farther from Crook's center. Then Crazy Horse made his boldest move of the day. He wheeled his pony and led a broad, sweeping charge, not at Royal, but directly at Crook's headquarters itself. It was a strike aimed at the heart of the command, a blow meant to break the army's spine. Bat Poirier, Crook's civilian guide, watched in disbelief as Crazy Horse rode straight into the storm of gunfire. Later, he swore that bullets flew around Crazy Horse like angry bees. They couldn't even hit his horse, he said. The warriors nearly enveloped Crook's center. Infantry scrambled into position. Officers shouted. The command teetered on the edge of collapse. Only a desperate crossfire from Crook's reserves, infantry firing from the bluffs, kept the headquarters from being overrun. But the damage was done. Royal's battalion was now cut off, driven downhill, pushed farther and farther away from Crook's main line. They were fighting for survival, not victory. Their retreat became a scramble. Many troopers doubled up on horses. Others ran on foot. The warriors stayed on them, firing from the ridges, closing in from both sides. Royal's command was being driven toward destruction, and Crazy Horse was the one driving it. The moment of crisis came just after noon. Royal's men were exhausted, their horses staggering. Warriors swarmed the ridge, 500 or more, encircling the bluecoats. Each time Royal tried to withdraw, the warriors struck again. Then Crazy Horse unleashed the final blow. He led a charge from the northwest, timed perfectly with the soldiers' moment of imbalance. Dust exploded, horses screamed, men shouted and cursed. Warriors leapt from their ponies to fight hand to hand. One trooper surrendered his pistol, only to be clubbed down. Another was dragged from his saddle and killed with his own revolver. Panic swept the soldiers. The battalion was on the brink of annihilation. Only the sudden arrival of infantry reinforcements, firing a thunderous volley from their long rifles, allowed Royal to escape. With many troopers doubled up on horses, he fled toward Crook's position. Crazy Horse's warriors melted back onto the bluffs, still firing, still taunting, still pressing. As the fighting raged into its sixth hour, a new dust cloud rose on the far horizon. It was Captain Anson Mills, commander of 6 companies of the 3rd Cavalry, returning from a long, fruitless sweep up the valley, where Crook believed a large Indian village might be hiding. Mills had found nothing, but now his battalion was riding back toward the main army. To the Lakota and Cheyenne, Mills's return looked like fresh reinforcements entering the field. Their ponies were exhausted, their ammunition running low, and they knew that if Mills struck their rear while Crook pressed from the front, the warriors could be trapped between 2 forces. So they withdrew, orderly, deliberate, firing as they rode. 8 warriors had fallen. Many more were wounded, but they had done what mattered most. They had stopped Crook cold. The Battle of the Rosebud was over. Crook claimed victory. He held the field, and by army logic, that was enough. But the truth was written on the faces of his men. 9 troopers lay dead. 23 more were wounded. His Crow and Shoshone allies, furious at how close the command had come to disaster, packed up and rode home. And Crook himself, shaken by the ferocity of the fight, pulled his entire column back to Goose Creek. He would sit there for weeks, effectively removing the strongest arm of Sheridan's summer campaign. Crazy Horse had done what no one believed possible. He had broken one arm of the Army's great pincer, but he did not celebrate. This was not the victory Sitting Bull had foreseen. This was not the dust storm from the east. This was not the vision of upside-down soldiers falling into the village. That storm was still coming, and it was closer than anyone knew. Sunday, June 25th, 1876. The sun climbed over the Little Bighorn Valley and found a people at play. Victory dances had rolled through the night. Young men and women drifted back to their teepees only as the sky paled to pearl. In the lodge next to Crazy Horse's, Red Feather's wife labored with their first child, her cries sharp against the lowing of ponies and the soft gossip of women already stirring. Kit Fox warriors still patrolled the ridges, but even the hard-eyed Akachita, Low Dog, rode with open doubt that any soldiers would come. Most families expected only another short move downstream that afternoon. Some wives had begun folding lodge skins and bundling travois poles. Others left the work for later. Along the river, children swam naked in the cool shallows. Boys fished with grasshopper bait, their younger brothers scampering along the banks. In the cottonwood shade, a few young husbands still slept off the dancing. Groups of young wives gathered to trade news and laughter. June, the moon of making fat, was prime for digging prairie turnips, and bands of women with daughters in tow had already scattered across the western benchlands. A handful of older men, Crazy Horse's mini Conjou brother-in-law, Red Horse among them, rode escort. East of the river, early hunters searched for stray horses. A party of 6 Red Cloud Agency Oglalas, one man spiriting away an eloping sweetheart, had slipped out during the night dances and crossed the divide toward Rosebud Creek at first light. Later, 4 or 5 lodges of agency bad faces struck camp and started home. Crazy Horse stood among the spectators on the Oglala campground, watching young men play the hoop and pole game. At noon, the horse herds were driven down from the western flats, raising a dust plume visible for miles. His 12-year-old cousin, Black Elk, had herded several families' ponies to water, eaten, greased his body, and joined friends for a swim before bringing the animals back. It was nearly 3 o'clock. Then the air changed. A Sans Arc warrior galloped opposite the Mini-Kanju circle, pony circling, voice carrying the warning. Almost at once, the Bad-Face party raced in from upstream, shouting that soldiers were pouring down Sundance Creek on the village's own trail. Black Elk, dawdling toward the river, heard the crier at the Hunk Papa camp. "They are charging! The Chargers are coming!" Naked children sprinted from the water. Women on the benchlands saw the dust and broke into a run. Strings of mothers clutched infants and fled for their families. In the Oglala circle, confusion erupted. The first shots cracked beyond the Hunk Papa lodges. Elders spilled from the council teepee. Mothers screamed for children. Crazy Horse stepped from his lodge, holding his bridle and a Winchester carbine. "Our ponies aren't in yet," he said quietly to Red Feather. Red Feather snapped, "Take any horse." He mounted and galloped for the hill west of the valley that overlooked the soldiers' left flank. Behind him, the camps boiled. Ahead, the Battle of the Little Bighorn had begun. Crazy Horse did not rush. While volleys rolled upstream and whoops rose, he prepared himself with the same deliberate calm that had always marked him before a fight. Naked, except for moccasins and breechcloth, he painted his face and body solid yellow, then dabbed on dots of white. He tied the stone Wotawe charm beneath his left arm, fastened a single hawk feather in his loosened hair, and hung the eagle wing bone whistle around his neck. He chose his weapons, a Winchester carbine and the stone-headed war club he thrust beneath his cartridge belt. He smoked and spoke at length with a holy man, invoking Inyan, the rock. Then he gathered earth from pocket gopher burrows, sprinkling and rubbing it into his hair and skin. When his ponies were finally driven in, he selected a white-faced pinto, streaked its flanks with the same protective earth, traced light blue wavy lines down its legs, looped the bridle over its ears and jaw, and swung up bareback. The preparations had taken more than 20 minutes. His closest comrades, Kicking Bear, Flying Hawk, and the rest of his bodyguard, waited restlessly, yet Crazy Horse refused to be hurried. He acted very coolly, one man remembered. At last, he extended his arms to the sun, calling on Wakantanka. Then he rode along the line of warriors, right hand raised, left cradling the Winchester against his hip. "Restrain your ardor till the right time," he told them calmly. "When I shall give the word." He paused, eyes steady. "Here are some of the soldiers after us again. Do your best and let us kill them all off today, that they may not trouble us any more." At about 3:45, he turned the pinto toward the fight. A stream of Oglala warriors poured after him. Women and children still fled across the valley floor. Others clustered on the hillsides, sending up the high tremolo of praise that blended with the shrill of war whistles as Crazy Horse approached. In the timber where Reno's men had taken cover, Black Elk heard the thunder of ponies and voices shouting, Crazy Horse is coming. Hundreds more warriors streamed toward the timber. The front of his charge sliced into the trees. Kicking Bear, Hard to Hit, and Bad Heart Bull nearly collided with Reno's right flank just as the troopers were mounting to retreat. Repeaters roared. One bullet, Kicking Bear's, some said, struck the Arikara scout bloody knife, spraying brains across Major Reno's face. The commander screamed contradictory orders. Dismounted warriors burst through the timber from the riverbank, pouring in a crossfire. The soldiers broke. Crazy Horse had struck at the precise instant of imbalance. The Kikamnayan tactic of his thunder vision made flesh. The sudden emergence of Reno's battalion from the timber momentarily confused even his own men. But Crazy Horse never hesitated. "Come on," he shouted. "Die with me. It's a good day to die. Cowards to the rear." Hefting his war club, he drove the Pinto straight along Reno's line. In the chaos, he grappled a struggling trooper from the saddle, brained him with the club, and vaulted onto the cavalry horse to the roar of his followers. The warriors poured along the flank. It was like chasing buffalo, one man later said. Soldiers were shot from saddles. Horses were gathered up by warriors who paused only long enough to claim them. Crazy Horse himself dropped one trooper with a clean shot between the shoulder blades. Eagle Elk saw him catch a black pony for a warrior who had been unhorsed, then ride on without breaking stride. At the river, Flying Hawk remembered, Crazy Horse was ahead of all, and he killed a lot of them with his war club. He pulled them off their horses when they tried to get across where the bank was steep. Kicking Bear fought beside him in the water. Men and horses floundered. Many soldiers never reached the far bank. By 4:10, the head of Reno's rout scrambled up the bluff, leaving 40 dead behind them. 9 Lakota and 2 Cheyenne warriors had also fallen, along with the 10 women and children slain earlier by Reno's scouts. Crazy Horse and a knot of Oglalas scrambled their ponies up the hillside just downstream of the soldiers. On the bluff top, they saw Reno's men forming skirmish lines. Beyond them, more troops moved downstream, Captain Benteen's battalion coming to reinforce. Then Crazy Horse's keen eyes caught a larger body climbing a ridge 2 miles northward, commanding the lower end of the village. Short Bull rode up, grinning. "Too late. You've missed the fight." Crazy Horse laughed. "Sorry to miss this fight, but there's a good fight coming over the hill." He pointed north. "That's where the big fight is going to be. We'll not miss that one." He was not excited. He made a joke of it. He wheeled the Pinto and led his men back across the river at a steady run, passing warriors still herding captured horses and stripping the dead. At the village ford, ragged fire sounded. A double volley cracked from the eastern ridge. From the Cheyenne and Sanzar camps, women and children streamed west. Crazy Horse reached the almost deserted Oglala Circle about 4:30. The war chief conferred briefly, prayed, made offerings. At his teepee, he pulled on a white buckskin shirt and leggings, then rode toward the new gunfire, Flying Hawk, and the others close behind. 1.5 hours earlier, Custer had divided his regiment and sent Reno forward with 3 companies to charge the village. Now, while Reno fought in the timber, Custer had led 5 companies down the eastern bluffs, paused, debated, and split again. 2 troops under Captain Yates trotted toward the village ford. Custer and the rest climbed onto the next ridge downstream to watch. But Reno's route had already changed everything. warriors were pouring back from the upper fight. Custer's plan to seize the women and children and force a surrender had become a desperate race. At the ford, Crazy Horse conferred with the Cheyennes and Hunkpapa war leader Crow King. They saw Yates's companies withdrawing up a coulee, pursued by warriors stringing up the gulch like ants. Non-combatants were still fleeing downstream. Crazy Horse and the others divided their forces. Crow King would press Yates from the rear. Crazy Horse would cross at a second ford north of the village, keep between Custer and the refugees, and envelop the soldiers from the flank. He galloped 1.25 miles downstream, splashed through the shallows of the Little Bighorn at Deep Ravine, and urged the Pinto up the brush-filled gully. Flying Hawk remembered. Crazy Horse and I came to a ravine. Then we followed up the gulch to a place in the rear of the soldiers. They dismounted. Crazy Horse crawled forward, sighted along the Winchester, and began levering shots. Each one, Flying Hawk swore, dropped a trooper from the saddle. By 4:45, Custer's 5 companies had reunited along Calhoun Ridge. Of the roughly 210 men, only one, young Crow Scout Curly, would ride away alive. Crazy Horse's warriors already infested the draws. The final phase had opened. What followed was a masterclass in fluid war. Crazy Horse alternated infiltration and sudden sweeping charges, never committing too early, always reading the ground. He flanked the right wing, companies C, I, and L, under Captain Keogh, while other warriors pinned Custer's left wing east of the river. Warriors crept from coulee to sagebrush, tightening the ring. Then the critical moment arrived. A charge from the south overran Calhoun Hill. Troopers broke north along the hogback in a rout. White Bull whipped his pony between companies, drawing fire, then wheeled back. "This time, I will not turn back," he said. Crazy Horse saw the imbalance. With a stream of warriors behind him, he charged after White Bull. The Calhoun Hill retreat became a massacre. Warriors smashed into the rear and flank. Mounted men were shot from saddles. Riderless horses streamed downhill. I Company tried to mount. The charge swallowed them. Keogh's men made one last stand, then fell. Crazy Horse rode the length of the I Company line, right hand raised, voice calling his warriors on. An Arapaho fighter, Waterman, watched in awe. Crazy Horse, the Sioux chief, was the bravest man I ever saw. He rode closest to the soldiers, yelling to his warriors. All the soldiers were shooting at him, but he was never hit. Near the end of the line, Crazy Horse veered left, cut straight through the soldiers, and split the command in two. No more than 20 survivors of the right wing reached the hill at the northern end of the hogback. The left wing, companies E and F, under Custer and Yates, had tried to support their comrades. They charged south, then swung into a shallow basin. The Suicide Boys, 20 Lakota and Cheyenne warriors, pledged to die, smashed into E Company from the rear. The Gray Horse troop broke. Warriors overran the line. Officers fought to hold a final knot on the hill, but the hundreds pouring from the Keogh sector now engulfed them. Crazy Horse waited no longer. He gave the shrill blast on his eagle wingbone whistle, kicked the Pinto into a gallop, and rode between the two parties. Soldiers fired a ragged volley. None touched him. The warriors took it as a sign the soldiers' guns were empty. They charged over the hill. Dust and smoke swallowed everything. Flying Hawk remembered only the war whoops and the ceaseless shooting until the last soldier lay dead. It was about 5:30. 45 minutes had passed since the battalions reunited on Calhoun Ridge. The furious fight since Calhoun Hill had lasted perhaps 20. Warriors rode the field, shooting into bodies. Down in deep ravine, the last shots faded. Women climbed the slopes from the refuge points across the river to search for husbands, brothers, sons, and to take what they needed from the dead. Upstream, Reno and Benteen had done nothing to help. Only when Custer's volleys sounded did a handful of troopers venture downstream. From Weir Ridge, they saw warriors circling the battlefield, firing into the ground. The Indians turned on them. By 6:10, the soldiers were back behind their lines, digging breastworks of packs and cracker boxes. Warriors sniped until darkness. All night, relays kept the pressure on. At dawn, the fusillade resumed. By noon, with Terry and Gibbon's columns approaching from the north, Sitting Bull ordered disengagement. The great village struck camp and moved south, 2 miles long, half a mile wide, parading past the exhausted soldiers in a final defiant dust storm. 16 warriors had died fighting Custer. 19 more, men, women, children, had fallen to Reno's first attack. The price was bitter, but the northern nation had won the greatest victory any of them would ever see. And at the center of it, steady as the rock he prayed to, had stood the war chief in the white buckskin shirt, the single hawk feather in his hair, the stone-headed club in his hand. Crazy Horse had not sought glory that day. He had simply done what the Thunder had shown him long ago: strike at the moment of imbalance, keep the people between himself and the enemy, and fight until the soldiers could trouble them no more. It had been, as he promised his warriors, a good day to die. For the Thunder people, it had been a good day to live. The great victory at the Little Bighorn had been won, but the people could not rest. Deep into the night of June 25th, 1876, the northern nation ascended the Little Bighorn River, a 2-mile procession of teepees, travois, and weary ponies moving under starlight. At dawn, they paused only long enough to nap and snatch a hurried meal from the food packs when the heralds cried, "Get ready, we are going." The women hurried to reload and hitch the travois once more. By mid-morning on June 27th, they had covered 16 miles and reached the forks of the Little Bighorn. The well-watered flat offered good grass and wood. The village was repitched for the night. On the 28th, they broke camp again and started south. Satellite camps fanned out along the easterly forks in search of better game and pasture. The main body followed Lodge Grass Creek and camped at the foot of the Bighorn Mountains. On the sacred 4th night after the victory, the people prepared to celebrate. Victory dances had already begun when a sudden shout of alarm rang out. "The soldiers are coming." A line of blue-coated men rode abreast toward the camp. Hearts leaped. Then the riders broke into whoops of laughter. They were Lakota warriors in looted uniforms, pranking their own people. "Terry is not following us," they called. "Everything is safe." Terry and Gibbon had relieved Reno and Benteen on the 27th and spent the day burying the dead in shallow graves on the battlefield. Relief washed over the village. Bonfires blazed. The dances resumed with fresh energy. Singers extemporized satirical chants about the slain commander they now knew as Pahin Hanska, Longhair Custer. "Long hair, guns I hadn't any. You brought me some. I thank you. You make me laugh." Over the next days, Scouts brought reassuring news. Terry and Gibbon had withdrawn down the Little Bighorn, carrying their wounded on horse litters to the steamboat far west. Gibbon marched to Fort Pease. Both commands were stunned and demoralized, licking their wounds. The Montana-Yellowstone columns were neutralized for now. Freed from immediate pursuit, the people turned to the necessities of life. Hunters rode out for buffalo. Small parties of uncles and cousins threaded into the mountains for deer and elk. Women and girls gathered early cherries. Boys fished the streams and hunted small game. Families cut new lodge poles as the village moved slowly through the high country. For several nights, the victory dances continued, and one name rose again and again in the praise songs. After the battle, Standing Bear remembered, "I heard a lot about Crazy Horse." Military men would later reach the same conclusion. Lieutenant William P. Clark, after debriefing surrendering warriors, wrote that the Little Bighorn brought Crazy Horse more prominently before all the Indians than anyone else. Before this, he had a great reputation. In it, he gained a greater prestige than any other Indian in the camp. Yet, Crazy Horse himself never claimed sole credit. He was no general directing brigades like chess pieces. Indian warfare remained fiercely individualistic. Warriors had knotted around many brave leaders that day. Gall coordinating massed repeater fire that shattered Calhoun's position, Crow King leading 80 Hunkpapas, Lame White Man, and Yellow Nose among the Cheyennes, Low Dog, and Big Road with their own Oglala bands. One unfazed trooper had estimated 200 men in the party that followed Crazy Horse against Reno, and many Cheyennes had chosen to ride with him across the river, trusting his medicine, his cool bravery, and his uncanny sense of the moment. What set Crazy Horse apart was the way his actions shaped the entire field. At every critical turning point, striking Reno at the moment of imbalance in the timber, severing the retreat of Keogh's right wing, and delivering the final charge that overran Last Stand Hill, he had sensed the precise instant when the soldiers' cohesion would crack. He had waited patiently while others urged premature action, then struck with devastating effect. His deliberate preparations before Reno, his calm joke with Short Bull when the bigger fight appeared, his refusal to be rushed even as the battle raged, all spoke of a man who believed the fight would unfold on his terms. It had not been a single grand charge, but a sequence of localized actions, each exploiting the isolation and breakdown of Army units, the same pattern he had studied since the Fetterman fight 10 years earlier. He had stretched Custer's command like taffy across the ridges, then cut the lines of communication at the perfect moment. Where Custer pursued his obsessive goal of preventing any scatteration of the village, dividing and redividing his force, Crazy Horse had remained flexible, responsive, always keeping the women and children safe while he dismantled the enemy piece by piece. The victory dances eventually wound down. Buffalo grew scarce. The people butchered horses for meat. Pasture thinned. The village drifted south, coming within 30 miles of Crook's still-becalmed camp on Goose Creek. On July 7th, a small scouting party, including Flying Hawk, tangled with 25 2nd Cavalry troopers under Lieutenant Sibley. The chiefs decided to shift down country, but warriors continued to harry Crook's pickets and torch the grass. On July 8th, the northern nation moved down the Little Bighorn toward the plains. then swung down Rosebud Creek. Game remained scarce. Every day brought another move. With military threats contained, the War Council yielded primacy to the deciders and Hunt Akachita. Outriders burned the plains behind them to lure the buffalo herds north for the fall hunts. By mid-July, the village reached the Tongue River. Subsistence now dictated dispersal. Several bands drifted south and east, some toward the agencies. The main village continued down the Tongue until it caught the northern herds. For 2 weeks, removals slowed as hunters made successful surrounds, and women dried meat, prepared robes, and renewed lodge skins. Crazy Horse took quiet pride in providing not only for his own teepee, but for his father's lodge and stepmother's as well. With food assured and no immediate pursuit, some warriors looked for raiding opportunities. Crazy Horse led a large party, 200 strong, across the Yellowstone, targeting Assiniboine bands near Wolf Point Agency on the Missouri. Gall and Flying By rode with him, hoping some of Crazy Horse's medicine would rub off. They returned with a fine herd of horses in the moon of black cherries, stopping at Terry's old supply base to load sacks of corn and oats before a steamboat whistle forced a hasty retreat under fire. Back on the Powder, the great village prepared to break up. New arrivals from the agencies brought troubling news of increased military activity around Red Cloud Agency. Buffalo were scattering. Some hunkpapas spoke of heading north to Canada. Others were ready to return to the agencies. Neither path satisfied Crazy Horse, but hunger demanded movement. The core of the village pressed east across the Little Missouri, seeking deer in the wooded uplands of the Killdeer Mountains, Slim Buttes, and Short Pine Hills. Crazy Horse himself was soon impatient for the warpath again. With no immediate pursuit, he took a small party, including Black Fox, Dog Goes, Short Bull, Low Dog, and several Cheyennes, into the Black Hills on a raid and intelligence-gathering mission. Behind them, the plains rolled under a black cloud of smoke as fires called the buffalo home. While Crazy Horse was away, the military storm gathered once more. Crook, reinforced to over 1,800 troops plus Indian scouts, broke camp on Goose Creek on August 5th. Terry prepared to march as well. On August 10th, the two generals met on Rosebud Creek. Their combined force turned east, following the old village trail across fire-blackened plains. Crook remained convinced that Crazy Horse would veer south toward the Black Hills rather than cross north of the Yellowstone. On September 3rd, his command struggled through the rain-lashed Badlands. Provisions ran desperately low. On September 9th, Captain Anson Mills's detachment, guided by Frank Gruard, struck a small camp of 37 lodges at Slim Buttes. They captured 400 ponies and looted tons of dried meat, but the defenders fought fiercely from a ravine. Crazy Horse arrived in the afternoon with as many as 500 warriors, expecting only Mills's smaller force. Instead, he faced the largest army yet assembled against the Lakotas. Odds were 4-1. Still, he urged his men forward. Warriors took positions on the granite outcrops and poured heavy fire into Crook's camp. Kicking Bear, He Dog, Brave Wolf, and others led contingents that darted and charged. One party even tried to cut off stampeding cavalry horses. A figure on a fleet white pony, believed by reporter Finnerty to be Crazy Horse himself, galloped around the array with the power of ubiquity, urging the attack. But the numbers and the long-range fire of the infantry were too much. As dusk fell, the warriors disengaged in good order. The next morning they harassed the rearguard in a running fight, but Crook pushed on toward the Black Hills. The Lakotas would later remember Slim Buttes as the fight where we lost the Black Hills. The news of Custer's defeat had already convulsed the nation in its centennial summer. Public outrage hardened against the hostiles. General Sheridan moved swiftly, placing the agencies under Army control and rushing reinforcements to Camp Robinson. A new commission browbeat chiefs into signing away the Black Hills and unceded hunting grounds, threatening removal to the Missouri or even Indian Territory. Moderate leaders resisted, and new exoduses began. Feelings ran high. Crazy Horse and the War Council declared Red Cloud Agency off limits. Families favoring surrender would be soldiered into line. As fall deepened, the northern nation divided again. Sitting Bull led up to 465 lodges north. Nearly as many Oglalas and Cheyennes followed Crazy Horse west to the Powder River country. The Cheyennes eventually settled into winter quarters on Red Fork, signaling their desire to sit out further fighting. Crazy Horse's band, about 250 lodges, pushed on to the head of the Rosebud, where buffalo finally appeared. For a few weeks, life settled into familiar rhythms. Crazy Horse even led a successful raid into Crow country, returning with scalps and ponies. But the shadow of new military power lengthened. Colonel Nelson A. Miles, Bearcoat, had established Tongue River as a permanent winter base. He patrolled relentlessly, harrying Sitting Bull's village and opening talks with Minneconjous and Sans Arcs. Messengers brought word of his dangling offers of a Black Hills agency. Unity frayed. Crazy Horse protested that he would not face the whole force of the whites alone. In late October, Crook assembled the Powder River expedition at Fort Fetterman, over 2,100 men, including 400 Indian auxiliaries. Lakota scouts who had enlisted with Crook believed continued war would only bring suffering and weaken future claims to their homeland. Crazy Horse saw only betrayal. Paranoia of spies and fifth columnists began to take root in his mind. By early December, 4 villages, Oglala, Cheyenne, Minneconjou, and Sans Arc, clustered at Hanging Woman Creek, nearly 800 teepees strong. Food was scarce. Then, on December 6th, a ragged procession of Cheyenne survivors staggered in from the Bighorn Mountains. Mackenzie had destroyed their village on November 25th. 40 had been killed, 700 ponies taken. For 11 days, the survivors had fled through freezing cold, children dying each night, babies warmed inside the steaming bellies of slaughtered horses. The Oglalas received them with the old hospitality, kettles of food, gifts of meat, robes, and horses. But as more destitute arrivals filled the camp, stores dwindled. Crazy Horse ordered Akachita to consolidate resources. To some Cheyennes he seemed detached, even pitiless, channeling what little remained to those still committed to the fight. Moderate leaders were quietly sidelined. News arrived of fresh disaster, Baldwin's howitzer attack on Sitting Bull's village. Ammunition and supplies were lost. Sitting Bull's people scattered. Yet Crazy Horse refused to wait. He pushed for an immediate offensive against Miles. A small decoy party of 50 warriors would draw the soldiers far from their base into broken country, where the Lakotas could fight on better terms. Some headmen were intimidated into agreement. Others worried in silence. Red Horse noted with unease that Crazy Horse now insisted on keeping the plan secret, even from the women and children, a futile and troubling departure from the open ways of the people. As the warriors prepared to leave around December 23rd, the war chief stood among them, the same man who had painted himself yellow and called on the rock before the Little Bighorn. But the long summer of victory and the hard autumn of pursuit had worn deep lines into his spirit. The black road stretched ahead, narrower, colder, lonelier than ever. Yet Crazy Horse walked it still, resolute, eyes fixed on a vision only he could fully see. A day when his people might live free again beneath the wide sky of their fathers.
And that wraps up this episode of Chronicles of the Old West. This podcast is a dramatized retelling based on real historical events, people, and places. Every effort has been made to remain true to the spirit and facts of history. Certain liberties have been taken with pacing and dramatic structure for storytelling purposes. The core events, figures, and settings are drawn from documented accounts and research. Next time on Chronicles of the Old West. The northern nation stands in the glow of triumph, but shadows gather quickly on the far edges of the plains. The victory that echoed through the camps now sends ripples across the entire frontier. Ripples that will soon return as waves. New pressures rise from distant forts and political halls. Old promises begin to crack, and as the summer deepens, the path ahead grows more uncertain, more fragile, and far more dangerous. Crazy Horse, lifted to new renown yet burdened by what lies ahead, will find himself navigating a world where every choice is dangerous, where alliances shift, where the land itself seems to hold its breath, and where the next storm may not be one that warriors can outride. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Your feedback helps us bring more stories to life. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on Chronicles of the Old West.